Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Medium channel where we bring you the spirituality behind the message. And we have another really awesome and amazing guest in Glenn Klausner. How are you doing tonight, Glenn?
I'm doing great, Adam. How are you? It's so great to be here.
It's so great to have you. I'm so thrilled to have you. And so we'll give as usual, the live people a moment or two to come on. So I'll just talk for a minute or two while that's happening. But one of the reasons, well, firstly, there's a few reasons why I wanted to have Glenn on. I mean, one of them is because this is the Medium channel, and I have yet to have a medium on for an interview. So Glenn is the first. I'll have more. In fact, if Susan, the spicy psychic, ever figures out her YouTube, I'm going to have her on because I've done a lot of events with her. Now with Glenn, I don't even know how we met. I don't know if we met through Sharita Starr, who's been on the channel many
Yes.
times. That's how we connected.
Yes, that's
And
how we met.
but I'm grateful for her for many reasons, including that. And then we just found that we just clicked basically, and we've done readings and messages for each other and helped each other out in different situations. So basically, that's how that connected. Glenn has a very impressive bio that's on the description for this video. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, well, there's a lot. I have 2 pages of questions here for you. But one of the things, because I noticed on your bio, you talked about age 4 and about things that happened to you at age 4, and I have a story about that also with a what we called the nursery school back in the day. Today it would be called preschool.
Mm.
And how my favorite teacher was absent for about a week. Then she came back, and I, as a 4-year-old, and this is one of my early memories too, I just matter of factly just blurted out, and I'm paraphrasing. I was 4, so I don't remember exactly what I said. Something to the effect that your daddy says don't be sad, that he's very happy in heaven, or something like that. And remember, she kind of like froze for a second, and then gave me a hug, basically, and like thank you. So, how share with some of your amazing childhood experiences. How did you know, or I shouldn't say how did you know, but as a grown up now, would you have gotten any clues of what your path in life was going to be based on on things that happened in childhood? And I could write a book. In fact, I am writing a book. um,
Well, I had that same feeling, in writing a book as well, where those experiences. I mean, the earliest experiences I remember is like my mom's dad. He passed 3 years before I was born. So sometimes I used to see him around my childhood home that I grew up at. And there was a little girl who would have been my little sister that didn't materialize, that
no.
I would see her around my home too. But it was really like simple things like back in those days when rotary phones were in our households.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, I remember.
and I'd say to my mom, grandma, meaning her mother, was calling. And meanwhile, the phone hadn't rung. And a minute later, the phone rang, and there was grandma on the phone. But really, between my 9th and 10th birthdays is really where things started coming more full circle. And I knew that there was definitely something there based on a prediction that I had made that pertained to my brother. And when my brother called to reveal that prediction that he didn't even know I made to our mom, that's when I knew, like, wow, that there was something there.
Wow, yeah, yeah. I know I've had things like that happen. Like I've had past life memories where I thought was happening in this lifetime. Like I remember I was probably about 6 or so, and went to my mom crying, asking why my brother hit me over the head with a brick and sent me to jail. And she was like, "What are you talking? Don't be ridiculous." So cool. Now, like I said, one of the reasons I wanted to have you, like I know of at least a dozen amazing mediums, and we'll probably get them on, especially as I start that, is because you're a musician also. And when I started to develop my mediumship, I think spirit gave me this idea. I started doing this in 2001, 2002. I went to Lilydale. I found a teacher, Sharon Klingler, who was amazing, by the way. Amazing medium and teacher. And I just got this idea to teach myself to play the drums and sing. You know, I wasn't terribly good at either, to be quite honest. I mean, today I can sing. I think that's thanks to the master teachers. When I channel, I'm basically singing. I think they teaching me how to sing. And for djembes and for an amateur, I'm not a bad drummer either. But what I found was that when I would do that, like for about a half hour or so the night before an event, my mediumship was better that day. So I really wanted to ask you how you feel maybe your career as a musician, and I understand you've rubbed elbows with and played with some pretty impressive rock stars in your day. How would you say that that's helped with your mediumship, or maybe it hasn't? Maybe I'm grasping at straws a little bit, but.
No, I mean, the first thing to start off with is like when I mentioned my brother, I have an older brother and he's a musician. So when I was a kid, being that he's a decade older than me, because we have different dads, we have the same mom. And so he turned me on to all the great rock and roll music. Then, of course, my parents had all the great stuff like Sinatra and Elvis and Barbra Streisand and Connie Francis and, all these crooner singers and stuff. And all that really came into my world. I loved all that doo-wop, Motown, Burt Bacharach stuff. God rest his soul, he just passed. And so anyway, for music, for me, that was always that first passion and love that I had as a child, and I still do, obviously. And I found that music and mediumship are very similar because it's channeled. And you think about all these beautiful, great songs, whether it's from classical, jazz, rock and roll, whatever the genre is, country music, it's coming from somewhere beyond here. And so I'm just still amazed of how the vibration of music, because it's a language, and even if there's no vocal to it, and it's just the instrumental, it has vibration. And as you know, the megahertz in songs and the way that they correlate even with our bodies and chakras. So it really does go hand in hand with channeling people that are in spirit.
Oh my goodness, I could go on and on about the Solfeggio frequency, the old musical scale, how they're all part of the 369 Tesla code, and all that stuff, and the Gregorian chant. But I will refrain from that. I will stick to the topic.
It's the Spirit of the Radio by Rush, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, if you start talking about Rush, I'm done. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, and because I love drums, of course. Neil Peart, he's got to be one of the top 5 ever. But anyway, let me not digress. And I really understand what you mean about frequency and flow, because mediumship's a flow. They're energy. When we work with music, it's a flow. When we work with music, especially when I'm drumming and singing, I can't think about what I'm doing. I have to let the music flow. I've got to let the energy flow. And the only other thing I wanted to just touch on, because what you touched on is, I remember hearing John Lennon one time way back in the day saying, "Oh, I had this song at the tip of my tongue. It was right there. It was right there." And then Paul Simon got it before me. And that's the way it is when there's ideas. Like if I get like a channel message, I'm pretty sure other people are getting it. So it's a little tip for you guys. If you get any like brilliant ideas about your work or career, act on them, because somebody else is going to get the same ideas. So, so very good. Let me just look at my questions here. Okay,
and I just want to say hi to everybody who is here. I saw some of the comments you posted, so thank you everybody for being here.
Yeah, I love Mickey Hart too, and Bill Kreutzmann, the other Grateful Dead drummer, probably one amongst the most underrated drummers, but that's beside the point. Mickey Hart's good too, but so going back to mediumship, and this is things that people like to know also. And by the way, you guys, if we're really nice to Glenn tonight, he may just do a few spot messages from your loved ones on the other side. So let's be really nice and send them a lot of love. A lot of people want to know. They ask me this question, so I'll ask you also. Do you just sort of go around like being open? Like, are you always picking up on spirits? Like my friend Susan, she says, rarely a day goes by when she's out and about that she doesn't get a message and give it to somebody. I would be mortified, and I think the spirits know that, so they don't bother doing that to me. But but do you do anything to like say shield, or I mean, I hate to use the word protection because that inferring that somehow spirit's a harmful thing, which it's
Right.
not. But you do open to the unknown and everything. You do open to energies. So I just was wondering, if you feel like it's hard to shut it on and off, or not really. I didn't
No, but when
need.
I go out, because as you know, I live in New York City, so when I go out, I'm really just to go out and enjoy what I'm doing, or if I got to go do errands and stuff like that. So, but I can tell you, and I know that you would understand this as well as any other medium, is going into public places, like whether you go into a concert, going to the grocery store, and you can feel the energy of stuff in there, and you have to be really discerning whether that's your own feelings or it's other people's feelings. So that's been a little bit the lifelong challenge with me ever since I was a little boy. Uh, but I somehow I've made it to a half a century young with all of it, so it's okay.
Nice, nice. I'm just flashing a few comments. Don't
I
mind me.
see.
I'm still
No, I
paying
see.
attention to
I
you.
see. Thank you, everybody, for the lovely comments.
So, would there be anything, because a lot of people that come to this channel, they're interested in mediumship, obviously. Would you have like any suggestions for, we'll say spiritual safety? Yeah, I like that word better than protection. Um, and
Love,
well,
love.
that's the perfect answer. Yeah.
Love. I mean, you could call upon Archangel Michael or whatever you feel comfortable with, whether it's your loved ones, it's Jesus, it's whoever. But really, if you're just in that vibration of love everywhere you go, and I learned that from my own loved ones that are crossed over, and just be, everywhere you go, just bring love with you. You are love, and I think that's the best. I put this in air quotation marks, protection, if you will.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the people, I know there's people giggling in the background, like, oh yeah, Adam says that all the time. Yeah, this is why you're here. Like minds, or what is it? Great minds think alike, or like minds connect, or stuff like that. Um, so cool. So would you care maybe to give an example of like a really amazing reading that you did that was life changing? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything if nothing comes to you, but I know we always had these few really defining readings that really changed their lives. So just wondering if there's anything that you'd like to share with that.
Sure. Well, I was actually just talking about this with a friend of mine last night. Some of these stories that I'm looking to compile for my book. And there's been so many great ones, as I'm sure you've experienced yourself in your work as a medium. Probably one of the most profound ones was the first spirit that I dealt with who had passed at the World Trade Center. His name was George, and he worked for Cantor Fitzgerald up on the 101st or 103rd floor. And when I connected 2 days after that event, that his sister had called me, one of his sisters, and when I got him on the phone, or rather her on the phone, she had already been a prior client of mine. So I said to her, "Did you have someone that passed in the World Trade Center?" She says, "Yeah, my brother." And I heard stop, and I hear this guy say, "My name is George," and I says, "Is his name George?" She goes, "Yes," and he says to me that his wife was on the phone with his sister. Now I was living in Florida at that time when this happened. So his wife then says hello to me. And anyway, he's given, because they thought he might be still alive under the rubble. And he gave certain statements that would allude that he was definitely deceased. And he ended up telling me that he was in the first World Trade Center bombing, which they validated. And he helped carry somebody out of the tower then. And but anyway, one of the things about me communicating to this spirit named George, I had asked him at that moment, was he mad at the people responsible for the destruction of the World Trade Center towers? And he said to me, no. He said that he didn't have a mean bone in his body to hate anybody. He wasn't going to start now. And his family, his wife and sister, told me that that's how he really was, because, like I said, he had been in the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. So he managed to still go back to work there even after that incident. So it just goes to show you what kind of soul this person was. And that, to me, hearing those words from him, thinking, you could be as a deceased person, especially of a tragedy like that, could be angry at the perpetrators that are responsible for it, which goes beyond the ones that we know of, and which is a different story in itself. But there's the thing, I think, you know, I think when a person like that passes, you know, they understand, but even looking at all the grief that is there in that event, and so the fact that he didn't hate anybody was pretty profound.
Yeah, and I'm sure you find the same thing, but I find not across the board, mind you, but I find there's a large propensity for those that cross over to lose a measure of their ego and their judgment as they cross over and see things from a whole new perspective. And gosh, yeah, I'm sure you can relate. But if I had like $1 for every time like somebody came through, usually it's their father, but whoever it is, and there's like I don't want to talk to him. 9 out of 10 times they come through to apologize, to let the person know, I see what I did when I was in the living, and I want to apologize for that. So that's wonderful. I was also wondering if you have any like say spiritual practices that you use to maybe to cultivate your mediumship further, or any daily practices. It doesn't even have to be for mediumship, or just be for life or whatever.
I just go like this, like Bewitched.
Yeah, right.
I just, you know what, I could tell you what part of that is. First of all, I always give credit to the spirits that are communicating to me for clients, because they're the one. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing the job I'm doing for someone.
Out of a job, yeah.
But what I tell myself, because I always still want to give the best reading I can to somebody and do the best job I can. And even, believe it or not, even I get nervous before doing a reading, because
I do too.
You know, I think that if I didn't, it would be a little bit more daunting to me. So it's good that I get a little nervous. Just like the same thing if I was going up and playing a show musically, I'd have the same thing. But what I tell myself is, I tell myself the words I am, which are the two most powerful words in the universe. And I tell myself, I'm going to give this person a great reading. I tell the spirits, listen, whoever wants to come through that is for the highest good of the person I'm about to read for, come through with evidential information. But I tell myself that I'm going to give this person a great reading, because I wouldn't do the opposite, obviously. So that's how that really works for me. That's pretty much the spiritual practice or meditative practice I do before I do a reading.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, we all have our own things, and I mean, in my own way, I do something similar, basically. And sometimes, I try to remind myself before my reading, it's not about the messenger, it's about the message. Sometimes I need to remind myself, because I'm in a human body, in a human life. I have an ego also, and sometimes you can get into your head. It happens to me. So usually I'll try to remember that beforehand.
I will say this though, Adam, I have this song called Safe to Smile that I wrote in 2011 for my CD, Breathe, Love, Life, as the opening track on this CD. It was the second to last song I recorded for that record. But when I came up with that song, I told myself that particular day that I wrote, I said, I'm going to write a great song today. And I wrote that song in 40 minutes, the whole thing, lyrics and music, never altering one lyric. And that's the only song that I've ever had that experience with.
Well, that goes to show you how to do your writing style, and yeah, setting intention, right? We talk about that a lot. Being in the heart, we talk about that all the time. Being present in the moment. That's also, to me, the key. I remember one summer in Lilydale, I was having all kinds of issues with my message work, and then on the fourth day, I finally was meditating. My guide came through and said, just practice presence. Don't think, just be present. And so I did that all the way up to, it's called Inspirational Stump, or the Stump at Lilydale. So all the way up to the stump, I'm like present. I'm feeling my footsteps. I'm like, not really listening to the medium, just staying in my heart and presence, and then I get up and boom, then it happens. So yeah, I know that. So you've been in a lot of radio and TV shows, no? And you had your own show for a while, or
So I have done a lot of both regular FM radio and internet radio. I've done more internet radio than FM radio.
Right.
I had actually at one point, I had 3 different internet radio shows on the same network called Contact Talk Radio. I had one first by myself, where I would do readings, and I'd also interview guests like yourself, and I had musical guests on as well. And then I had a same show, but with another medium friend of mine. And then I was given a music show, actually, that I hosted for maybe about 6 episodes until the show was, pulled or whatever. But it was fun. And TV wise, I haven't done that much TV. The TV stuff that I have been on is actually, I can laugh at it now, is when I was in Florida, I was interviewed, which was kind of a cool experience. I was interviewed on the major networks in the town in Florida that I lived in. It was ABC, CBS, and
Wow.
well, first it was ABC, then NBC, and then CBS.
Wow. So is there any favorite interviewers or anybody like really well known that you?
Adam Bernstein. Everybody, give him a round of applause, please.
All right, I'll pat myself on the back.
One of my favorites that I did. I mean, there's a lot of great people I've been on the show, but probably one of my favorites that I got to be on. John Holland, who's a fellow medium, and Suzanne Northrop.
Yeah, I've spoken to him a few times. What a great guy! Yeah,
great. So like John Holland and Suzanne Northrop, they were on my show when I had it, and they had me on their show, and that was really great to be on their show as well, because of they before us in guys like George Anderson and Suzanne Northrop, and then guys like John Edward and James Van Prague and John Holland, they were kind of all paving the way in a sense. I mean, John Holland and I came up at about the same time, so it was great. But right now, in this moment, you're my favorite.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I never met Suzanne, although I adore her work.
Yeah.
And I think you know Catherine Nadell, also a fellow medium, because she's worked with I thought about her because she'd worked with Suzanne Northrop, right. And we've done together several times. Also, great lady, great medium, also. And I met John Edward. I don't remember when, but I was working at the Long Island Psychic Fairs for a time. That's where John Edwards started when he was 16, which to me is disgusting, but that's beside the point, that he was like that good at that young. But anyways, talk about like crystal children. Wonderful. Let's talk about music. Right. Music. So who well known have you played with or interacted with, or any crazy stories that you want to share?
Well, I mean, first of all, I all of the notable and unnotable, known and unknown musicians that I've had the great pleasure to record with or play live with in the past, to me, it's all great experience. Yeah. The notable musicians that have recorded with me, they've recorded on my songs. I've never recorded on any of their songs. So, I mean, besides my brother Phil Fight, who most people would know his bass playing on the Billy Idol song "White Wedding," he's one of those guys.
That's a great bass line on that song.
And he played on the whole record, but I have to give credit to him because he's that first musician in my life. And I've got to play with some of the other guys that played in Billy Idol as well, like Tommy Price, who played drums on him and Phil play on my most recent song, "Give Up the Ghost." And Tommy Price played on Rebel Yell. He's in the video for that. And for Moni Moni, played with Joan Jett. My brother played Joan Jett too. And Steve Lukather from Toto. I mean, that to me was like, I couldn't even believe the guy was sitting in front of me recording a lead guitar solo on my song "Live, Love, and Laugh."
Oh my God.
So him, and there's been Tommy, my friend Tommy Mandela played with Brian Adams. He was the keyboardist for Brian, and he's played on a lot of my songs. So there's been some I've been really blessed to work with a lot of great musicians, and since I'm a teenager.
That's amazing. I just have Tuesday afternoon flash because you were talking about crooners like who are you talking about? I don't know.
Sinatra.
Sinatra, the prototype crooner. And for my money, in modern rock and roll, Justin Hayward is the prototype crooner. And he does the lead vocals on the song Tuesday Afternoon.
It's a great song. I actually once did that song. My friend Cece Muscarella, who has a dance studio in Fort Myers, Florida, she used my song for Ballerino, which is about my niece. She used that song for a performance once. And when I lived in Florida, she one time had me come up, and I mimicked the guitar parts of the record of that particular Moody Blues song, Tuesday Afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, he's had so many great songs. Let me flash that.
I see that, Mr. Idol. Carissa says actually bought that CD at full price. Well, I'm sure my brother will be happy with the royalty money.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah,
Back in
so
the day.
Mr. Floyd was posting a Grand Edge poem. I'm a big Moody Blues fan.
Oh.
The Grand Edge is the drummer, and you would hear him doing the poems, basically. All right, what other question do we have here? We talked about famous music, or we covered that. If you guys have a question for Glenn, please don't hesitate to do that.
But I have met, also meeting a lot of great notable musicians has been amazing too. Guys I never worked with, just to meet guys like Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, who's Billy's guitar player, and Ace Frehley of Kiss. I mean, to meet like guys that are sort of a little bit my musical heroes has been really cool.
Wow, yeah, that's great. I'm in Woodstock, so I met two of Peter Gabriel's hot band back in the 80s, that being the drummer Jerry Marotta.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, and Tony Levin.
I've met Tony.
Yeah, I mean, that era, Peter Gabriel lived and died with the rhythm. And that would be the drummer and the bassist, basically.
Yeah. And I just want to say something, because you mentioned Tony Levin. Tony Levin played on the last John Lennon records, Double Fantasy and Milk and Honey. So when you listen to songs like Just Like Starting Over, I mean, Tony Levin's bass lines on that song are amazing.
Yeah, I know. And of course, Jerry Marotta has done work with Wings, I think. Well, Paul McCartney definitely, but I think on Wings. And
I think you worked with Hall & Oates also.
Probably, yeah. I was going to say he knows Max Jaeger's. Interestingly, I was talking about who was I talking about before? Oh, Mindy Lang. She ran the Long Island Psychic Fairs. That's how I met John Edward, because I was doing the fairs, and I was considered well, I'll say one of the top mediums, and not the top. There's a lot of great mediums there. So she introduced us and everything, and Mindy Lang is Michael Lang's cousin. Michael Lang, you did a lot of the Woodstock stuff also. It's a small world.
Yeah.
And then Elliot Landy, I've done readings for him in the past also. He did a lot of those photographers, like the ones of Levon Helm and all those amazing Jimi Hendrix, all those amazing photographs. That's Elliot Landy. He's a Woodstocker also.
Nice.
And Peter Gabriel, lead singer. Yeah, that's the Genesis I love. And there's a couple of post Gabriel ones, like Wind and the Wuthering's a favorite also. But about 5 out of my 6 favorite Genesis albums are Peter Gabriel. Yeah.
What about The Lion Lies Down on Broadway?
The Lamb is the best, and
The Lamb,
yeah, and that's my
When I said lion, I meant the lamb.
And the interesting thing is that there was super tension in that band at that time, because basically Peter Gabriel did all the vocals. He wrote all the music for that. Now, if you listen to some of the earlier ones, every now and then Phil Collins took the lead vocals, and some of the stuff before that. So that and Trespass are my 2 favorites from Genesis. Trespass was pre Phil Collins even. That was their second album. Anyways, I'm getting carried away with your musical question. Oh no, I don't have any. So what else do we have? Let me go back.
I am curious to know here, because I wanted to say this. I picked this up before us doing the event here.
Okay.
There's a spirit that was getting my attention, and somebody here knows somebody, a male spirit. And that's going to sound really weird. Now, this is my real hair. Even I'm always asked if it's a wig or a toupee. It's my hair.
It almost looks like a toupee. That's funny.
No, it's my hair. and I just got it cut.
Sure. Oh, we believe you.
But there was a mail that came to me when I was pouring a glass of water before going live with you, and there is a guy in spirit, male, who actually either had a toupee or a wig, and I do think that he was a heavy smoker, because of some chest stuff. And so if anybody recognizes it, I mean, feel free to type it to Adam, and then I can kind of maybe give you what his message is. But he definitely had either a toupee or a wig, and he was sort of a slender build man, and sometimes he had a mustache. I could see him, what he looks like, but he definitely was a heavy smoker. And He was, I don't, the version I'm looking at him, you know, he actually kind of looks like, thank you for the compliment about my hair. I thank my mom for that. And, but the guy actually, if anybody saw the movie Valley Girl with Nicolas Cage, the man that's in my head looks like the father of the main girl actor in that film. And I forget that actor's name, Forrest something, I forget, but he played the father in that movie Valley Girl. And he has the health food store. This deceased guy kind of looks a little bit like him. Like if you take Sonny Bono, the late Sonny Bono, with this particular actor from that movie Valley Girl, they kind of look similar in the face. That's how I would have to describe them. Thank goodness for pop culture, and I watched a lot of pop culture because it helps me in doing readings.
Yeah. You know, I have another medium friend, Sarah Sachs, who just knows all the old movies. She's a Pittsburgh-based medium. Very, very good. You know, it's done a ton of work at Arthur Findlay College, which I've never done, and I can't wait to try that. But you know, I'm thinking, you know, you may be picking up on my brother, but he didn't have a toupee, but he had hair very much like yours, I have to say. Yeah, very much. And at one time it was curly, and then he had Hodgkin's disease, and after chemo it was straight. It was like curly like a Brillo pad, and he kept it like yours, even longer, very similar color. And then it got straight and silky after the chemo. And unfortunately, he died at age 41. I mean, that may not be who you're picking up on, but
Was he heavy? Was he a heavy smoker at one point?
he quit, but he was a heavy smoker, and he was a slender build.
So, but it's interesting because if I'm going to find that picture of that guy, that actor I'm talking about from the movie Valley Girl, and in my head he looks like, you know, with the mustache, he could kind of pass like a little Sunny Bone. And matter of fact, a whiff of some ganja just went under my nose, and I don't smoke marijuana.
I've been a heavy pot smoker a lot of my life. Not now, but a lot of my life.
I just got a whiff of it under my nose. But if it's your brother, it's interesting because, you know, I'll find that picture of that actor I'm talking about. But I just saw him in my head when I was, like I said, pouring the glass of water, and I didn't know who he's for. But I could swear I thought the guy had a toupee, or, you know, on his head.
Yeah, interesting. Do you find the water helps your mediumship? Because if I'm a little stuck, I'll take a break. I'll have a sip of water.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have a combination.
Like right back in.
I mean, it does help. I mean, I also drink coffee, so.
I do too, but I mean, yeah, water. I mean, it's the element of emotion of you know, it's of the West. It's very flowy energy. You know, you know, when you mentioned, I was just curious. So, what else do we have? So I kind of covered this before, but if you find that the music strengthened your abilities, or maybe you're not conscious of it, maybe it's always been part of you, and you kind of.
Well, it's a great question. I'm not really sure the right answer for it because I know. I mean, can you imagine this world without music?
No.
So I would say yes to your question that music definitely makes me feel alive. Music that I love and appreciate, and whether I'm listening to somebody's music or I'm playing my own or whatever, and I would say that it probably definitely strengthens all of us, our well-being. So yeah, I would say yes to your question then.
Yeah, I figured you would. It's funny you mentioned imagine a world without music. Where my brain flashed was in Rush's 2112, that song 2112. I mean, it's really, you know, a statement on the censoring in the music industry. But the story in that song is that they're in some mechanized planet or society where music is basically outlawed, and then he finds a guitar and basically winds up killing himself because he couldn't handle living in the life that he was living. At least that's how I interpret the song. I mean, it may have a whole different meaning. That's the great thing about music. Yeah, and you know, flashing back to Peter Gabriel, he was the master. Like his lyrics can go in so many different directions. And more than anybody else, I get more visual sense listening to their music than just about everybody. So anyways, so let's get to some nitty gritty. How do you see your work helping people or helping others? Yeah, maybe down to a personal level or just, you know, mediums heal. We know that.
Well, how do I see it healing people is what you were asking?
Well, just how it's helping, you know, how this is helping people. How's this helping? society in general?
Great question. Well, I mean, from all the readings that I've conducted in 27, professionally in 27 years, because I did readings a little bit before that, but not, professionally. I would just do them randomly for friends. But in the 27 years that I have been doing it, to see somebody who, there's one story that I have in particular, but it would be too long for me to talk about in this time that we have left in the show. But I'll give you a quick example of that particular story. There was a client of mine who since passed on, and when I first met her, her only child, her son, had passed away. He was 20 years old. And he left behind a little boy at that time. Well, she was referred to me by a psychologist friend of mine, who since became a friend of mine, but who knew my stepmother's grandson, because this particular psychologist had worked with my stepmother's grandson. Long story short, I'm back here in New York. My dad has some computer problem. I can't help him because I'm not there, to go over his house to see what it is. And I'm not that computer savvy anyway. So this client of mine who was alive at the time went to my dad's house, and my dad was asking, I said, I made the arrangement that they would meet and all that. And my dad had asked this client of mine, Linda, how do you know Glenn? And so she told him that she had a reading with me when her son passed. And she tells him the whole story. And here's the clincher, Adam. She tells my dad, and my dad was a big skeptic. He thought when you're dead, you're dead. My dad was very supportive of me and, and all that. He didn't poo-poo me, but he would never even come to a seminar that I would do in Florida. So Linda, this client of mine, tells my dad that all the information that came through in that reading that I did with her with her son, it saved her life. That I didn't know that she was going to commit suicide. And because of the messages that came through, it made her stay alive on Earth. And I never knew that. My dad, after she helped him with his computer, he called me to tell me this story. And even I was bawling in tears because, for my dad to say to me how proud he was of me that I did that for somebody really meant a lot to me. But the fact that to know that this woman did not end her life was a blessing, So, like I said, she since passed on. She passed on of a healthcare issue. But yeah, that was probably one of the most profound readings I've done. Yeah. And how you asked the question, how does it help somebody? So that's a great
beautiful example. It saves somebody. It says eerie, but I have such a similar story. A recommendation from a psychologist that's done friends. Her son passed. I won't say the names, but her son passed. Great messages. He came through, and then later on, when I had the second reading with her, she basically said the same thing. It's like if you didn't tell me what I told you, basically, I was going to kill myself that night. And then in Janet No Havoc, the late great Janet No Havoc's book, she has a very similar story for that also. So mediums heal, and I find that basically. It's just healing. I mean, there's so many different ways we can approach it, but just to know, we can't bring them back to life. Although, as Janet No Havoc says, our jobs as mediums are to paint them back to life. We can't bring them back to life, but we can let them understand that they're not dead. And I think that's huge. And to be able to prove it, anybody could say that. And, I'm a stickler for evidence. I came into this as a scientist. It's like, if I was in that audience, what would it take to convince me that this medium is picking up? And I've kind of patterned my work after that. So like yourself, and you've seen me work several times, it's evidentially based as well. So let me, I was going to ask how people can find you. Well, let me.
Telepathically.
But here's Glenn's website. All this information is on the description. It's also going to be on the pinned comments. So there's that. And here is his Facebook, his professional Facebook page.
Well, that looks like some cockamamie link there, but if they put Glenn Klausner in Facebook,
that's what they freaking do on that. This is all going to be. These links are all going to be in the pinned comment, and fear not. And you and Glenn will have a medium channel soon, dedicated to mediumship. But this is for his music, and this is this is how you can find Glenn on YouTube also. So, he's Glenn Kidd. You didn't know that there were two people there, did you? You thought there was just one person.
And I'm not even a Gemini.
You're not even a Gemini. Oh my God. That's it. Interviews out. No, I'm just kidding. So just, do you have any like cool future planned, or do you have any ideas or thoughts about maybe where where things are going in your career, in your life, or if not, it's okay. But I figured I'd ask anyways.
Well, I mean, the thing that my dad has been doing to me since, I mean, my dad's deceased actually in a couple of weeks. He's deceased 10 years now. And
I thought he was in the spirit world, but
of course, but my dad keeps he actually, before he passed, my dad said to me, okay, Glenn, you made your music and you're doing all this stuff. He goes, okay, that's great. He goes, write your book. And so he's still doing it to me from beyond. And so that's the thing, because I'm used to writing a song. Writing a book is a whole other different animal than writing a song, a 3-4 minute song. So that's a thing. And I want to do this, channel for YouTube. So this way I can do videos, and there's footage of me already on YouTube that I can put into that. And so that's
more.
Yeah, the thing is, I give you credit, Adam. Like I give a lot of people like us credit that do all the technology stuff. I'm good enough to like the way I am. I show up, I'll do the interview, but all this technology stuff is not me. So, but
not me either. Trust me. I mean, I have Heather, Heather Astara helping with that end, but I mean, I learn as I go along. I've kind of been that way, rise to the occasion. Throw me out there, I'll figure it out. That's kind of how I did YouTube also. Trial and error, a few embarrassing mistakes along the way.
So okay.
Telling my friend, who was it? One of my friends, about that. So, do you have any messages and anybody coming through? Or
yeah, before you said it, there's somebody that's coming through to me. I believe it's the person definitely had a brain aneurysm. They're actually here on me, and it's a woman. She actually had a lot of access to. When I laugh, I always tell people when I'm reading them one-on-one, if you hear me laughing, I'm not laughing at you or your grief or anything. Spirits are really funny, as just like on Earth, living people are funny. This lady's telling me she had a lot of access to grind. And that's why I started to laugh, because you don't expect that. That's what I mean by being us. You don't expect certain words to come out of you. But she had short hair, dark hair. She kind of was a very opinionated lady. I mean, had no bone. Like my grandma Rose used to say, the tongue has no bones. This lady had no filter. Now, somebody wrote here, hold on, Glenn, is your medium gift auditory or visual? It's actually both. And also smelling. So like if somebody smoked, I can smell it under my nostrils, or if they drank, I could taste it, especially if it's familiar things that I'm familiar with. But the lady, though, I do think that she had also a hernia, which that I don't think physically had anything to do with it. I think this brain aneurysm is what caused her passing. But she had a hernia. She had a couple of different health issues along the way. She maybe even had some TIAs, some mini strokes. And sometimes people, when they have these mini strokes, they still survive. But this lady was definitely she keeps saying, I had a lot of access to grind. And she's, for a woman, when you put a normal sized person height, like, whether they're 5 feet or 5'5" or whatever, next to a gigantic tree, the tree obviously looks bigger. And so I look at her like wanting to chop the tree down like George Washington. But she's just kind of, I think she's checking in on the people that she knows that are here. And she's being very non-discriminatory, according to her, but she is being at the same time a motivator to help push people that she knows forward. So like if they have a hard time getting up in the morning, like they don't maybe want to get up and face the day, she kind of pushes them to do it.
So it looks like a match, yeah.
So Suzette wrote there, sounds like my best friend Callista does that. Everything I said about this personality and the description and the health stuff, does that fit into that particular person? Because I don't always get the names out of deceased people. Sometimes I do, but I'm easier to describe the personality. Huh?
Yeah, with me too. I don't always get their names. Sometimes I do. There's a 10-second delay, so wait for it. She'll be back in a second.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get the names out of them, but there's a gazillion names, yeah. So it's easy to pick up on that whole personality and the look.
That for me is better evidence. I mean, a name is just a name in my book.
Joe is Joe. It doesn't mean anything.
Very unique. Yeah, it's good evidence, but oh, here we go. We got the confirmation for you.
Yeah. So I see it says OMG, yes, with a couple of S's there.
Yeah, that means you really nailed it, basically, you know, in text language.
Yeah, I will say though, I want to say something on behalf of this person, the deceased person, that she is making me feel like a lot of love being directed towards the person who's acknowledging her. And just like, you know, you got this. You're like the champion of champions. Think of like the Wheaties cereal, you know, like that the old Wheaties back from the orange box, whatever. That champion of champions. And matter of fact, you should write the person who saw that. What was her name? Callista? Or the person who acknowledged me on that one? Oh, Suzette. Write down the word champion of champions, because you might end up not thinking about this and that word might pop out by somebody who doesn't know what we're talking about. And so if you see it somewhere, or maybe, I mean, nowadays seeing a Wheaties commercial on TV is zero. So, but I keep hearing this lady saying the champion of champions, you know, like world champion, you could do it. Very confident, like your support system. But she told me she's unapologetic that if she told anybody to go F off, she's not apologizing about it.
I love them and cursing grandmas are my favorite. I love when a grandma comes in and starts, you know, sounding like a sailor.
Yeah. I try not to curse in the reading, because the way I look at it,
I don't actually curse in the reading, but I explain they're using colorful language.
I don't like to curse in the reading, because I mean, because I feel like, you know, somebody's paying me money, you know, and so it's not that I never use the F word, you know, but
yeah, and you have professionalism and ethics. So
I grew up in Brooklyn. The F word is all over the place in Brooklyn.
of course we do. Yeah. Well,
do you want me to do another one?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do one more. Yeah. If you have another one.
There's a younger female actually coming through to me who does make me think. There's times, I'm sure you go through this yourself, Adam. There's so many times that when I get something from a spirit that I really sincerely want to be wrong on, and oftentimes I'm not, but this is the moment I'm about to want to be wrong on. So there's a young female coming through to me, long straight hair, kind of like I guess like a strawberry blonde. I mean, it's not blonde, but it's like like the tips are like frosted or strawberry blonde, or the roots are more browner. Like a golden brown, golden blonde, golden brown. She had some little freckles, actually, if you get really up close to her face. And her eyes are, I think they're bluish color, like they're either blue or blue-green. But she kind of looks a little like, she may have had this a couple of times when she was here on Earth. She looked a little bit like Maureen McCormick, who played Marsha Brady on the Brady Bunch. But her hair is not as blonde, but the features are similar. And this girl, the part that I want to be wrong on, I think this girl did something, you know, sniff, or something that would be in drug related that caused her passing. And I think it was something she talks about, a homecoming. So like a prom, a homecoming. So I don't know if it happened in that timeline, or she started to get addicted to drugs in that timeline, but she is talking about a prom and a homecoming. They tie in. So if somebody recognizes that, let them put that in the chat, your chat. But that's not common for me. But I just heard homecoming and prom and like that whole scene. And you know, the way it's interesting, the visual of her, the girl, kind of looks like when the Brady Bunch were almost towards the end of their filming, and you see what Maureen looked like then compared to when the show first started, even though she still looked the same, obviously. But they kind of match up a little bit with that face. So again, thank goodness for pop culture. But this girl does make me feel like that she hurt a lot of people in that process, because I think she hid her substance abuse, and I think the people that may have known a little bit about it, I kind of think what happened to her was a little bit what happened to Elvis, that there were people around her that they didn't speak up about it because maybe they were afraid to, or they would just, you know, kind of like what happened with Elvis. Like that's a whole other different story with him. But with her, I think there was something that didn't get revealed. It was masked, or there was I don't think it was foul play. I think her family, though, thought it was foul play at first. I think people around her thought it was foul play. But I think she just ingested something that reacted to the way it did in her body, and it caused her death.
I think Carissa's feeling it. Now, it's quite conceivable that one of you guys that's watching this video may get this message also. So if you're not live, don't what's the right word? I can't even think of the word.
Oh,
I got to tell you,
let
Glenn.
me just throw in one other thing, Adam, about this
Sure,
girl.
yeah.
Because she's still she's
Still here, yeah.
Yeah, she mentioned about Microsoft, and I think that she's trying to tell me that someone affiliated to her works for Microsoft.
Maybe that'll help. I've got to tell you, in my work, seldom a week goes by that I don't get at least one drug overdose or suicide. Usually I get several per week. And it's a very scathing statement on our society that so many people just feel there's no hope, that they have to leave, or they have to find drugs as an escape in their lives. It is really sad, but somebody's going to take this, even if you're not taking immediately. Somebody's going to get this, and it's going to be very helpful to know that this soul. I mean, she may be with me too, because I feel like I'm just hearing tell everybody I'm very sorry. It's interesting because you threw a name like Linda out before, and I'm hearing a Lynn or Linda in my mind, so that may tie into this person also. But I feel like they just want to let everybody know that I'm sorry, and they stamp the word accidental. So I'm just validating everything Glenn told you anyhow.
Yeah.
But,
Hey, Adam, can I address something? Well, if we have just a moment to do
yes,
it.
we do. Yes, there's no set time limit here.
Yeah. So as you know, Saturn. There's 3 planets that are about to change zodiac signs.
Saturn.
Saturn.
We're going to talk about
Right.
that tomorrow night on my live stream. Yeah.
And so Pluto's about to go into Aquarius, and Saturn's going into Pisces, and Jupiter's going to Taurus. Now, of course, as you know, I'm not an astrologer, but I have some, like yourself, the awareness of it. I want to say to people that are listening to this that with the planet Saturn that's going to be going into Pisces, Saturn is the planet of a teacher. And now astrology, I love astrology. I've always loved it. I have friends that are astrologers, but I also don't get too hung up on things like the Mercury retrograde and whatnot. But I do understand how planets work even in my own life. And I've seen how they've affected me when astrologer friends have worked with me and told me things that are going on with me. But with Saturn and Pisces, because we just talked about people who have committed suicide or have had drug overdoses, and we know, listen, Adam, you may be up in Catskills and I may be in New York City, but neither one of us are under a rock. And we know that there are a lot of people in the world since even pre-pandemic, but the pandemic and the economic strife on top of the war, on top of the drug epidemic that's around in America and around the world, we have to realize something, that the most important thing, I think, for all of us is that we are more kinder to ourselves. And there's a guy named Cornelius Christopher. He's on YouTube. My friend Lynn, who's a Bouchard, who's a great astrologer, turned me on to him. And he talks about that if we're kinder to ourselves, the world, each of every one of us, because we could be kind to somebody else, but if we're kind to ourselves, the whole world will change. And the importance, I think, with Saturn and Pisces is the way our country and the way the world is right now in economics and between the food prices going up, the war in Russia and Ukraine, and all this different stuff. Not that we want to delve into all the news and the darkness and depression, but it's really important, I think, that each day we really honor ourselves, focus on what we love, let go of whatever doesn't feel good for ourselves. Even I'm going through that too, like where the parts of my own identity or personality, are like just being stripped away in a sense. So it's realizing that the other day I even heard a voice in my head goes, remember who you are, just remember who you are. And that means, I knew what that meant. That meant as a soul, not the Glenn, the human. But I think it's really important to be more in the heart centered and love yourself, and whatever way that you could bring a positivity to other people, whether it's a smile, it's a kind word, maybe somebody's hungry and feed them. I think every step that we can do will be very crucial at this time in this particular decade, because the next few years, from what I know, are going to deal with a lot of mental health. So it's important that we find ways to stay connected. And one other thing, Adam, if I may, with technology, this is great, but a lot of sometimes the technology, as wonderful as it is and as expansive, there's a tendency to get lost where there's a sense of not communicating. It's everything's a like button. Now, like buttons are cool on Facebook, but sometimes it's so almost like there's no communication. And I think we need to get back to where we could dialogue and we can reach out and pick up a phone and call somebody and hear their voice. And don't wait for people like you and me, once the person is deceased, to channel them because you didn't talk to them on the phone. I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that, wholeheartedly. So I think it's really important that we can keep these connections going and alive.
Yeah, apologies, folks, for the unstable internet that's happening on my end. I live in the Catskills. I apologize for that. But I think you called most of that. I couldn't agree more. That's an amazing way to end. And definitely say to people that you love, tell them you love them today, so you don't have to hire somebody like Glenn or myself tomorrow to say what you should have said to them right now. I know I sound like John Edward because he ended a lot of his shows that way. And
that's okay.
But all of us mediums really feel that, and we really feel that in our heart, because we're dealing with the other side. We're dealing with people's emotions. We're dealing with their grief and everything, and we're trying to connect for them and to help them to make the connection themselves. So I just, my hope when I do this work is that I open the door for somebody, that they start learning how to communicate with them on their own, not call me every single week, basically. So anyhow, we're really losing the connection. I think it's time to wrap up. Yeah, go ahead.
And Adam, we're all connected. So like all these things that divide us and separate us, whether it's political parties and stuff like that, that doesn't exist in the spirit world at all. And I think we need to remember that's just an experience that we're having here. And those political parties or different religions, that's anything that separates us, it tries to keep us separated. It's no good.
Yeah.
So on a happy note, peace and love.
Well, yes, love. Yes. I just say I didn't delete a single person for liking a different candidate or making a different choice of their vaccine status or none of that, because we're all brothers and sisters. We're here on one planet, and those that come through on the other side, they're going to tell you, through somebody like Glenn, that hey, life's too short. Resolve your differences now. You're both human beings here to grow, learn. Let's get along, basically. So, all right. So we're going to end on that note. Because Glenn's completely frozen now, and I have no clue whether you're seeing me or not. Oh, he started.
I see you. Do you see me?
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being part of this. And again, Glenn's. See, we're leaving. Spirit saying end this, so we're going to end it. Thank you, everybody. I love you.
Thank you.